they're calling for a massive boycott of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. And please, let's look at this image, which is simply brutal. In 2004, Helen of Troy looked like this and Achilles looked like this. Basically, Achilles was Brad Pitt, just imagine. In 2026, Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman, the most gorgeous woman, would look like this. So, it would be Lupita Nyong'o and Achilles, the strongest man, the brave warrior, would look like this. Ellen Page, a trans man. I mean, just imagine that. This is what many people are claiming is going to happen and will take place in Christopher Nolan's next movie. And here they tell us, let me introduce you to the cast of The Odyssey, the new movie by Christopher Nolan. Helen of Troy will be African, Achilles will be played by the trans actor Elliot Page, Ellen. But anyway, they say they've completely destroyed Homer's work. Look, there's something very important we need to mention. For now, this is just a rumor, but it's getting stronger and stronger, and there's something important. These two people, Lupita Nyong'o and Ellen Page, are going to be in the movie and will have a very important role. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this rumor, which has gone very viral, ends up being confirmed. But later in the video, I'll tell you my most honest opinion. Now, I want us to look at the following because honestly, everyone has gone crazy. Here they tell us, don't give your money to people who hate you, your ancestors, and your culture. And it turns out that this Greek woman says the following. As a Greek woman, I can't stay silent. I owe this to my ancestors. Boycott Nolan's The Odyssey, which has completely altered Homer's epic. Helen of Troy, the most beautiful woman in the world, was written by Homer with golden blonde hair, dazzling white skin, and a divine European beauty that launched 1,000 ships. She was a Greek woman, not a sub-Saharan African. This is not representation, this is the erasure of history. Greek and European identity, they say. Let's see how Homer actually described her. Here we're told, Homer does not offer a meticulously detailed physical description of Helen of Troy. Instead, he uses epithets and subtle descriptions focused on her divine beauty and her impact. White arms. This is the most recurring epithet, which denoted nobility and pale skin, indicating that she did not perform manual labor under the sun. Beautiful hair. Radiant. A selection of terms that highlight her brightness and attractiveness. Divine beauty. Homer suggests that her beauty was similar to that of the immortal goddesses, such overwhelming beauty that it justified Trojans and Achaeans fighting for her. Impact on the elders. When Helen appears, the Trojan elders murmur that her face looks like that of the immortal goddesses, highlighting her supernatural appearance. Okay. Suggested beauty, not described. Homer. Homer leaves Helen's beauty to the reader's imagination. By not giving specific details, her beauty becomes infinite and eternal instead of limited. Now, obviously I know you can use this to say, well, he never gave a 100% detailed description of Helen of Troy. But guys, let's be clear. Helen of Troy must be a woman so beautiful that an entire army would fight for her. Would you say, objectively speaking, that Lupita Nyong'o is that beautiful? That she has such an extraordinary level of beauty? Well, maybe one of you will tell me you think she's pretty. Honestly, I don't feel the same way, but to each their own. That's just how it is. So, people went completely crazy and they're very angry with this movie. Really very upset. But now, I want to show you a comment that this guy here made, which actually has nothing to do directly with the topic of physique. Neither Helena of Troy nor Ellen Page. No. But he said something that really caught my attention. Please, let's listen to him.
I have a bad feeling about Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, but not because of alleged historical inconsistencies like Lupita Nyong'o as Helen, or that the armor looks like it's made of carbon fiber. No, what worries me is that the Odyssey, which together with the Iliad make up the first great Western poem. It's a text about power, but above all about desire and longing. And sorry, but if there's something Christopher Nolan doesn't know how to do, it's represent desire and longing. Christopher Nolan's entire filmography is pure intellect. And the few times he's allowed himself to be human in Interstellar or Inception, it's hopelessly corny.
That's very true.
And even worse, in the very few times he's allowed himself to be even remotely sexual, it's frankly disastrous. For example, what about the erotic scene in Oppenheimer where Cillian Murphy recites the Bhagavad Gita while he's having sex with Florence Pugh? Or what about The Prestige, which despite being a story directly related to desire and jealousy, it manages the miracle of turning Scarlett Johansson into the least desirable character in history. Never, absolutely never.
A lo largo de todas estas películas,
We have never felt desire for any of its protagonists.
That's very true. If you think about it, even in the Batman movies, something very similar happens. I mean, Christopher Nolan is a genius. He's an amazing director, but wow.
And Homer bases the Odyssey on the wild sexual connection that exists between Odysseus and Penelope, but even more on the wild attraction that Odysseus feels toward a number of female characters, like Circe, Calypso, Nausicaa, with whom he spends years completely out of his mind before returning home. For example, take a look at this text. Then Circe, the divine among goddesses, led me to her bed, and I stayed there lying with her. And so, day after day and night after night, we were together, and it goes on and on. Now look at this human's face. Do you think this man can convey the erotic power of these verses in a movie? And this isn't random, because the Odyssey is a journey 100% powered by desire. Eroticism is the fuel that decides whether Odysseus travels or stops. For example, in the Iliad, desire causes an entire army to mobilize to rescue the most beautiful woman in the world.
Do you honestly think that an entire army would mobilize just to rescue her? Really? I don't know, Rick.
Yeah, of course, when you're not able to portray that desire that borders on madness, what you end up with is a movie like Troy. A movie where it truly doesn't sound ridiculous for an entire army to mobilize just to look for a woman. And in the same way, in the Odyssey, if you can't portray that desire that borders on madness and motivates Odysseus' journeys and pauses, what you have is just a trip with obstacles from point A to point B, from Troy to Ithaca. That's exactly why I have doubts, since I believe the Odyssey is much more than that.
Exactly. Do you see? Christopher Nolan would have, in this case, a very, very complicated mission. And that's to justify why an entire army would give their lives and fights for this woman. For the most beautiful and gorgeous woman in the world. Something that seems crazy to me. And there's also another mission that's very, very difficult. And that's to justify that Ellen Page is the man. Well, to begin with, she's not a man, but anyway, the most powerful man, a brave warrior, someone who's scary, commands respect like Achilles. Can Christopher Nolan pull that off? I don't know. Honestly, that's why I find this rumor a bit hard to believe. It seems too crazy to be true. If this gets confirmed, which is something a lot of people are talking about and mentioning, and it's been going around for quite a few months now. If this gets confirmed, it's crazy. And I want to think that Christopher Nolan hasn't gone that crazy. He hasn't reached that point. That's why let's give Christopher Nolan the benefit of the doubt. Let's wait and see what happens. But for now, this is a rumor that's getting a lot of buzz. And honestly, if it ends up happening, what's coming, the chaos that's going to break out, I think we still don't realize just how extremely controversial this movie would be. Anyway, only time will tell. We'll know very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, see you next time.